Hi, my name is Jen Miller. I work at a company called Vuture. In the past, I also worked at a company called Vocus. So I tend to like companies where you just drop the F, add a V. So if someone starts a company called Vuck, I will probably be there. So Vuture actually got acquired last week, which is exciting news. And needless to say, I'm tired. But I think what that means for us and for our business is we're about to embark on a very big change management process. And it's not just a change management of a few things, it's going to be a change management of almost every process that we have within the company and with every technology that we have in the company and all the things that we do. And so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about how do I help my team and how do I help my leaders to be more effective in this whole change management process. And I think the fundamentals of change are actually the same fundamentals of sales. And I think sometimes we forget that because we're so excited being in sales and we were so excited to be sales leaders that we sometimes forget just kind of the basics. And there's lots of methodologies, and some of them I think are too complicated for what they are, like MEDDIC. I have done it and I've tried to implement it in other places, and I'm like, you need a lot of help to implement MEDDIC. It's not really fit for purpose in some contexts. And so what I thought is, like, let's go back to the beginning of my sales experience. And the beginning, I learned BANT. How many of you have used BANT? Look at that, like 70%. You used it a lot because that was a long hold. So with BANT, I think if you kind of take that same model and you kind of switch it up a little bit, what you have is a really good way of thinking about change management. So the B, instead of thinking of it as budget, think of it as bandwidth. Because in leadership roles and in sales, a lot of times our money and our value is our time. And so if we're thinking about our time, not just our time, but also the time of our team and the roles that they have and the KPIs that they need to achieve to be successful, can we implement something that will give them the bandwidth to stay successful, and can we actually see it through to finish? Because a lot of times what we do, and I do this, MEDDIC last year is a good point, got it in Salesforce, was really amped up, it fell flat. And it's hard to admit that, but it did, and it's because I didn't have the bandwidth to see it through with all the other priorities in the business. So whenever you're thinking about change, think about, can you do it? If you can't do it, can someone else in your team do it? And if not, maybe it makes sense to deprioritize that for that period of time. And I think it's also about, the next bit of that is instead of A, authority, let's go A is audience. So when you think about change, typically you have a number of different people internally, and this is where we're going to bring in some other kind of sales methodologies, but think about the people who will be the people that will influence your ability to make change. Think about your champions, the people that always are amped up about everything that you're doing. Think about the people that are difficult, the ones that typically, they see the storm cloud and never see the rainbow. And, think about how you can use those different people for different bits of that process. A lot of times I've found with people that are really negative, just get them to take ownership of certain parts of it, because usually if people own things, they're emotionally invested in them, and that emotional investment tends to mean better outcomes. Your champions, right? So champions are, they're the people that rally, but they're not always the best at execution. So don't always think that your champion is the person that you should let lead. Maybe they are the perfect leader for certain parts, but maybe they're also the perfect follower for other parts. So try to know your team, know your audience. Also develop a lexicon, right? Like, know the language that's important to your business for people to be successful. When you think about sales, we're a lot of the times experts at mirroring people. We take language, we use language in really crafty ways, sometimes I think, maybe too crafty, but we're using it all the time to get people to buy into what we're doing, and we're essentially getting them to buy in to change processes. And so really the fundamentals of sales are change management. I think audience bit, know your people, know what they need, know what they care about, then figure out how that fits in to not just the kickoff of a change process, but the ongoing management, the ongoing accountability to those different points. And, all right, so think of the outcomes. See, that doesn't work. So think of the need that you're trying to fix, but then think of the outcome. So it's a little, I got creative there. But the idea is that if you don't know what your team need to be successful, and you don't know what the outcome is that you're actually driving towards, what you're probably going to do is what a lot of us probably have done. You create these processes and you think they're beautiful, and you're like, I've done it. It's great. It's all like, it's lined up start to finish from the time someone starts it till the time they put it into Salesforce, till the time I want to report on it. But the thing is if that actually isn't driving the result that you want, which is in most cases money, is it good to know that every activity someone does is worth 28 pounds? That's exciting for some people, but then they may just think they're not getting paid enough. So it's about not getting too caught up in the detail of the process and what you're trying to do, but really making sure that the process is leading to the outcome. And the last bit of that is the timeline. And I think that the outcome and the timeline are so attached because I think change management is the wrong word. Because change is very kind of absolute. I changed jobs. That means, I've left and gone to a new one. I've changed the country I live in. It's pretty final. I think that most of the time we do need this agile way of thinking or this sort of, evolution management. And so what we're trying to do, and, I think the timeline bit and why it goes back to the outcome and need bit is that it's never done. You have to build processes that help people build routines, but you also have to help people realize that a routine isn't always fixed. And that's a really hard thing to do because, if you think of us as human beings, we are naturally disposed to be lazy. Our brains optimize for laziness. And not necessarily laziness, but we're trying to always find the easiest possible way to achieve a goal or to not achieve a goal. It's like I like going to the gym, but most of the time I don't actually. But I do try. And I get in habits sometimes and then I break them. If you just think about that in terms of people, we are managing people. Evolution processes are people processes, and they are constant. And if you just think of the routine side of that, we have to be flexible, we have to be creative, and we have to change, but we also have to build in routines that help to drive the outcomes that we're actually trying to achieve. And so I think the easiest way to think about this is, if we are what we do, is that Aristotle? Probably, yeah. If we just think about the routine side of that, we do need to keep that in mind, is that it's not always about changing and being super agile. It's about having a process around that flexible thinking. Sorry, I thought you were about to tell me I'm done. Oh, whew, thank goodness. So if we just think about evolution, change, or whatever you want to call it, I think it's a number of things. So one, just think of BANT. It's the easiest way to just break it into something quite simple, that when you're thinking of building out something new or changing something new, can you do it? If you can't do it, can your team do it? If they can't do it, who can? Can you outsource it? Can you get budget to do it? Because if you can't, reprioritize. The audience, it's your team impact your customers. If they're not happy, that's not working for them. It's probably not working for your customers. So maybe shift the way that you're thinking. What is the need? What are you actually trying to solve for versus what's a symptom? So think of that need versus the outcome, and then think of how you're going to build that into processes, not think of it as has to be done by X timeline. Because, it's like if you think of when you sell a deal, it goes into success management. And in success management, they have quarterly business reviews. They have ongoing things that they're doing in order to stay successful. So again, apply that model into the model in which you execute change management. Thank you.
Good job.